Hello everyone, welcome back to our Reach Family Weekend 2020, and we are in the middle of our afternoon panel session. We've already heard from our ambassadors. Still to come later on this afternoon, we have our social influencers, and we'll be talking about emerging sports stars. But now we're going to be talking about health. We've got a team of health professionals and a couple of changes. First, quick change, we've got Jo Dixon, who has stepped in very kindly at the last minute. We'll explain a little bit more about her role and where she comes in when it comes to health. We've also got Clara Price and Sally Siggs. So welcome to you all. How are you?
Hi.
Yeah. Good,
great to see you. Yeah, lovely to see you. And I'm loving the headphones.
Thank you.
And actually, Jo, you look like you've got some interesting headphones with the green chair that you're sat on.
Yeah, I was just realising that it made me look like I had two massive great green ears.
But lovely to see you. Now, Jo, everyone will remember you for your role in Reach, all the incredible hard work you did. But actually, you've just you're retraining, aren't you, to be an occupational therapist? And I was thinking to myself, actually, I think I know what that means, but maybe you could explain that better for us.
Oh, stick me on the spot. Well, I've actually I've qualified now. 3 years have gone really quickly. Yeah, Clara, please help. 3 years. So I finished 6 months ago, and I'm now working as an OT in driving assessment. So I'm seeing quite a few Reach children and adults coming through for their driving assessments to see how they can get back or get behind a wheel for the first time safely and with as few adaptations as possible. And OT is about helping people to live the best life that they can in the way that they want to live it. And that might be around adaptations, it might be around grading and staging things to preserve energy. Clara, please help me.
Well, actually, Clara, I was going to ask you, Clara, because you're a mental health occupational therapist. So first of all, you obviously understand the occupational therapist side, but obviously mental health is very much a key part of that.
Yeah, so I worked in mental health for 4 years. I actually work in social services, mostly in physical disabilities at the moment. But so occupational therapy, you know, as Jo was saying, very well, very eloquently and using very good terms. It's about adaptations, equipment, or strategies, teaching different ways to help people to do the things that they need and want to do. So, you know, every day-to-day activities, there are things we need to do, things we want to do, and different. For whatever reason, people can struggle with that, whether that be mental health, physical health. And OT is about looking at the person as a whole, what their environment's like, you know, who they are, their preferences, what they can do, their strengths, and looking at how the environment could be adapted, or what their strategies could be to be adapted, or aids, adaptations, things like that.
And again, staying with the mental health theme, you know, Sally, you're working with education mental health, working in schools, and that must be a very interesting time for you at the moment.
Yes, it is. We're actually still working remotely at the moment, so I'm very used to things like this. But yes, I work with children and young people with mild to moderate mental health difficulties, mainly anxiety and low mood or depression. And yeah, we're very busy at the moment, very busy, as I'm sure you can imagine.
It is a huge subject, and maybe staying with you, Sally, for a moment. You know, we're hearing a huge amount about mental health during this whole COVID crisis, and it's great that the conversation is being had. But what kind of things are you seeing come up that maybe are unique to where we are at the moment?
Oh, gosh, I think there's a lot of sort of anxiety about obviously getting ill and catching, COVID. And what we're seeing a lot at the moment in schools is that groups of children are having to get sent home, or whole year groups having to get sent home. So there's a lot of kind of anxiety in schools at the moment surrounding that. But also the parents are sharing that anxiety too, because obviously they want their children in schools, but it feels like it's a risk. And we've been told for the last however many months or so that we all need to stay inside. And so sending children into school feels a bit sort of going against that. So yes, I mean, in terms of at the moment, we're really focusing on helping children transitioning back into schools. We've been doing workshops and things like that, just so that they can feel kind of supported going back to school, and just kind of educating them that actually at the moment we are living in extreme times, and everybody is going to be feeling a bit of anxiety, and we're kind of helping them, giving them coping strategies and telling them how to deal with that. So yes, that's what we've been working on at the moment.
It's quite interesting, Clara, because Sally was talking about coping strategies, and sometimes we have this interesting scenario where people will say, kids are remarkably resilient. They have this ability to bounce back a huge amount. At what point in your experience does a parent particularly have to spot something that actually this isn't just about having to be a bit more resilient, this is somebody who's going to need some actual real professional help? How do you distinguish between those points in someone's well-being?
Well, so I think Sally would probably be better to answer in terms of children specifically, but just in terms of kind of my own experience and being a reach child, and I think that it's when it starts to affect how they can engage in their day-to-day life. It's when it really takes over. And to be honest, I think it's probably a good idea with children to teach coping strategies, good and healthy coping strategies from an early age, whether that be mindfulness or activities that they enjoy, things like that. But yeah, I think when it's past just a bad day or a bad week, it's worth just that's when I think.
And presumably, when a child's behaviour starts to change, and they may not be able to articulate what the anxiety or what the trigger is, but when they start, what Clara said was when a child stops wanting to do what it is that really makes them tick, or when they start to exhibit some really different behaviours, anger, withdrawn, all those type of things. But I'm sure Sally can elaborate.
I think you've summarised it both brilliantly. That is the main thing that we say, is that when the anxiety or low mood is affecting day-to-day life, that's when children and young people need that little bit of extra support. And I think part of my role as well is educating parents and anybody involved in the education system, teachers and school staff, to spot those warning signs and to spot when children and young people are beginning to exhibit outside of the normal range of emotions. And I think that's really important as well, and something that we've been working on.
Yeah, thank you all. That was a great answer. And I just want to remind everybody who's watching that we really want to hear from you. So please do go onto Slido and let us know on Slido exactly any questions that you've got, any concerns you've got. We know there'll be a lot of questions surrounding mental health at the moment. So please let us know. It's right there on the right-hand side of your screen. Just pop in your question there, and I will certainly ask it to any of the panellists or all of them to get their take on your particular question, because this is very much your panel debate. We really want to hear from you. But I want to come back to you, Jo, a second. And, for you, changing your role to now being an occupational therapist, the fact that you're seeing these reach children from a very different perspective. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, I've seen 2 or 3 so far, 2 or 3 reach adults or young adults come through wanting to learn to drive, and I think it's been an advantage that I've either known their family or I've known the type of limb difference that they have. But from a driving assessor's perspective, we're trying to get people to drive with as few adaptations as possible, because it makes life both a lot cheaper and a lot easier in the long run. So if you can drive an automatic without an adaptation, then that is the way to go, because you don't have to keep moving your adaptations. But I don't just see reach children. I see, adults with dementia, and trying to keep people driving as long as possible. And driving is one of those, for reach kids, it's a rite of passage. Well, for any child, it's a rite of passage, isn't it? From your teenage years into your adult years, driving a car means independence. It means, being able to cut the apron strings from your parents. It means, work, social life can all start to really blossom. So we know that at the end of somebody's driving career, that's also really important, to help them to plan how they're going to stop driving. So stopping them with a guillotine coming down and saying that's it isn't really our plan. But for somebody, it can really impact somebody's mental health, taking their driving license away, and that it has to be done in a way that is gentle and managed. So does that answer your question?
Absolutely, and it's as you say, it is that whole rite of passage. I think we can all remember the day we got our driving license, when we passed, and you're able to sort of head off into the wide world by yourself. I mean, it's an incredible thing, and especially for reach children, because the sort of feeling of reliance sometimes on other people, the fact of having that independence is perhaps even greater. Clara, as a reach child, first of all, tell us about when you started. Are you driving? I should ask that first.
I do. Yes,
you do?
I do drive.
So tell us a little bit about that, and then also just your journey into adulthood, and then your training, and that how that was for you. Big question.
Big question. Yeah, I mean, so I guess to kind of give a bit of background about me and Reach anyway. So I went to the Reach camps from the age of 10 until 18. I think I was a Reach member since birth, but as Frank was saying earlier, I think it was a bit more of like a place for parents to chat, and my parents didn't personally find that very helpful. And when I turned 10, my mum asked if I wanted to go on this camp, which she didn't think I would want to, and then I said yes, and I went, and I had the best week of my life for a week every summer for 8 years. It was fantastic. It was I didn't realise until I was 18, but it was my support group. It's what I needed, because it was just people where we were the norm, where me and people with weird hands and arms were the norm. And it was, as Claire was saying earlier, it was something I was insecure about in my teens, the same way you'd be insecure about feeling too fat or having a big nose, except for it's much less easy to hide because you're missing limbs. So for me, I think that growing older and also working in healthcare, so I chose to do a BTEC in health and social care when I was 16 years old, and I remember kind of so rather than A levels, I did a BTEC. So I remember going into that thinking, well, if anyone here makes fun of me because of my hand, they shouldn't be working here anyway. And that was just kind of like a start of, I think, just I'd left school. At school there's just so many people, and for me it was the thing that I was worried about with my hand was the reaction I'd get, because I've had some people scream. Not many people, but you only need one person to scream at you to not want that again. And no, so as I grew older, then I learned how to drive when I was in college. I don't have any adaptations on my car. I can drive a manual car. If I remember going actually to an adaptation, I think it was at an AGM. I think I went to an AGM and there was a car there with a bunch of adaptations in it, and they were doing, like what you do, Joe. And the only thing that they said was about the handbrake, but actually I can do it. So it took me 3 times to pass, but that has nothing to do with my hand. And yeah, so I can drive now. I've never crashed my car. That's good. Couple of scrapes, but never mind. Sorry, Mum and Dad, you're watching. And
no, that's absolutely great, Clara. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Really good.
Yeah.
No, that's perfect. And one of the questions that's come in is about coping strategies. And, of course, we know that mental health and physical health, they are so interconnected. So, again, Sally, working with young people, we know that there are all sorts of strategies that people have. Have you got any suggestions or any ideas to help people?
Well, it depends really. I think kind of if you're talking about anxiety, there are loads of things you can do, and there's loads of resources online as well, but we focus on relaxation techniques, whether that is breathing techniques, whether that is progressive muscle relaxation, which is where you kind of progressively tense all your different muscles all over your body, including your face, all the way down to your toes, and then kind of let them go. And it's like reprogramming your body, I guess. It's kind of you're taking up all that energy and then releasing it, and you feel relaxed afterwards. But if it's something like a panic attack that you feel is coming on, or something a bit more serious like that, there are lots of different things you can do. We sometimes talk about sort of going outside and doing some handstands, not handstands, it's out of completely, I can't do handstands, but exercises, jumping up and down on the spot to kind of get rid of some of that excess energy, or using ice. You can use ice against sort of either your temples or different areas of your body to kind of shock your body kind of back into sort of out of the anxious state and into kind of a more relaxed state. But something else we do, and something that the kids really enjoy doing, that comes up time and time again, is a strategy we call the 5-4-3-2-1 strategy, which is where if you're feeling really anxious, and this is a good one because you can do it sort of quite subtly, you do 5 things that you can see. So you can name them either out loud or in your head. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste, if you can do all of those things. And it just helps to kind of ground you and get you back into reality, and takes you out of your head a little bit. So that's kind of the most popular one. But yeah, I hope I've given a range there.
Yeah, no, I really like the 5-4-3-2-1 idea. I think that could work for everybody. Now, I'm not going to direct this next question, which has come in, to anybody in particular. I'll just let one of you take it on. I can tell you're getting nervous now, but I'll let whoever feels equipped to answer this, if you like. And it's that subject of dating. Young people, obviously, they start, becoming a little bit more aware of somebody they might be attracted to. Obviously, there is the additional aspect of a limb difference. Any tips, any advice about how to deal with the pressures of trying to date, but at the same time having the limb difference to throw into the mix as well? Anyone like to take that one on? No, this is a resounding. I wasn't looking at you, Clara, but if you feel able to take that on, I think as a rich child, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, so I think especially in the day of online dating, especially in COVID, and you only see pictures of people, you don't know how they will react, when they meet you in real life and you're actually missing limbs or whatever it might be. And with me as well, because I can unintentionally sometimes just have my hand covered, I can go a while and be thinking, I don't know if this person knows that I'm missing fingers. But I think the main thing to really think about is that if the person's any good, if they're nice, if they're, the right one for you, they won't care. They really won't. So if they do react badly, that's honestly, for me, it's an instant, easy throw them away,
Well, it's certainly an icebreaker, isn't it?
decent or not? Well, yeah, I mean, and so in terms of telling people as well, I think that can be hard. Sometimes I have. I date so often. Sometimes I have just outright kind of said it, or it's kind of like come up in conversation. Well, not really, but I've made it come up in conversation just so they know. But
that's fine. I will leave it there, Clara. I won't put you through this any longer. But thanks for that. Really, really good. Another question has come in, which is a really, really good one. And we've heard from quite a few contributors today who've been talking about the different operations they've gone through throughout their life, all sorts of different surgeries and so on. And Joe, as National Coordinator, you have seen many children over the years who've been through all that side of things, and maybe for you and Sally, talk about the effect on their mental health that having this surgery has. The particular individual who's written in a question is basically asking, because they've got a 2-year-old and they're aware of the various operations that are coming, and they're just concerned about the effect that it could have on their child's mental health.
I think they're right to be concerned, and I know that a lot of parents go through decision making whether their child is going to be put through the operations. I was a 2-year-old when I had my accident, and I had no choice about any of my surgeries, and I would say it did have an impact on my mental health as a child, but I'm really old now, and it never featured. My parents weren't even allowed to stay in the hospital when I was having my surgeries, and I had them all the way up to the age of 16. And now I know that there's so much support, and I would guide any parents to, on our website there's a booklet about preparing your child for surgery, and any paediatric hospital team will have that support for children who are going to go for planned surgery. And so to help the parents talk to the children about it, and about what's going to happen and what they're going to feel like and what difference it's going to be, and short-term and long-term differences, how it's going to impact on their life, is really important. So prep for the parents and prep for the children, and that has to be really age appropriate. So there's no point freaking a child out with all the details about what's going to happen, when actually the child is just interested in, where will mummy be when I wake up, and and mummy needs to know that, what will the pain relief be, and when will it be available, and what will they be able to do. But the other place to get that support is the Reach closed Facebook group. There's lots and lots of parents who have been through it recently and not so recently, to be able to support a parent making the decision to put their child through surgery, but also helping them to know what to expect and what a good outcome will be.
Sally, I've got a question for you. I think this is probably mainly for you, and it's talking about workshops to help youngsters who've maybe got mental health concerns to the point where they need their esteem rebuilt to get them back into school. And the question is, what actually happens in these workshops? How do they do it?
It's a very good question. So we provide a variety of workshops. Some of them are aimed at parents and are aimed at sort of reducing parental anxiety by normalising kind of how everybody's feeling, what your child is likely to feel, and how to kind of support them getting them back into school. We also, the workshops that we've been focusing on at the moment have been helping children and young people transition back into school. So those workshops are, firstly, they're universal. So we offer them to whole year groups in the schools that we're working in. So it's not just kind of targeted, it's offered to everybody. So that's kind of reducing the stigma around sort of mental health and anxiety and low mood. And during those sessions, we make sure that the teachers and education staff are involved as well. And we talk through, as I've previously mentioned, we talk through actually what anxiety is and what it feels like, and when it's kind of normal and when you might need a bit more support, and really work on just educating really, and just kind of telling the children and young people what anxiety feels like and what might happen if you do feel anxious. And then as well, if you do feel anxious, what are the coping strategies to help with that? And because we are school-based as well, we work closely with the schools, and we sort of talk through with them prior sort of where the children can get help in school, and so we really personalise it to the school as well. And so that's kind of, when I talk about the transitioning back to school, that's sort of the areas that we focus on, educating and then providing coping strategies as well.
That's really helpful. Thank you very much. And Clara, I'm going to come back to you, but you'll be delighted to hear I'm not going to be talking about dating or anything like that. But actually, a really good question that's come in from somebody about help that's available for parents and adults when they have children with mental health problems. And, you know, what support is there for parents who, frankly, are going through an immensely tough time when their children are suffering? You know, are you aware of the specific help that's available to them?
I know that there are support groups and support available for carers, and I know that you can contact your local social services and ask for a Care Act assessment. What that is in your particular area, I'm not sure. Here in Norfolk, it goes through to Carers Matters, which I think is a nationwide organisation, so Carers Matters would be a good place to look as well. I am kind of more talking about carers than parents specifically, because that's what I know more about, but I think in those circumstances it can be that you're in a caring role if you are looking after someone with a mental health difficulty, and then those kinds of things can then link you to support groups, whether it's other parents or carers to talk to. And yeah,
I was wondering, actually, Joe, do you want to pick up on that? Because again, in all your years, you will have encountered parents who have gone through this exact situation. What have you found?
What we would have said is that if it's a mental health condition that is being created by or exacerbated by the child's upper limb difference, then I would talk to somebody in their limb centre. Most limb centres now have got some form of psychological support, and that's not just for the person with a limb difference, it should be for the carers and the parents as well. A lot of the paediatric surgical teams have got psychological support within them, so I meant to say that in the answer to the earlier question, where parents can talk to the psychologists about the impact of the surgery, both on mental health and on physical health, and that they're a really good resource. Parent Line is also a really good resource because they will signpost to lots of other organisations so specific support groups that Clara was talking about, they will know more about. But also the other organisation that we would pass people on to with the knowledge in our hearts that they were going to get a really good service from is Changing Faces. And although Changing Faces' name is about facial difference, the messages that they put across to both the young person, there's a young person's helpline and a parent support helpline, and the information online is really, really strong, and you can just pick the phone up, and they are who I would often signpost a family to, particularly if they've got a child who is more young adult age, so secondary school age plus, who is able to interact independently. Then Changing Faces is fantastic organisation, and they understand the psychological impact of having an obvious physical difference and also the physical aspects. So use Changing Faces, definitely.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Joe. And I want to finish off with a final question that I'm sure is on everyone's lips at the moment. We are going through what appears to be a second wave. There's a lot of unpredictability going on at the moment in terms of what's going to happen with the different tiers around the country. And some people might not have particular mental health concerns at the moment, but they could develop. What's your advice to any of our parents who are watching, or young people for that matter who are watching, to keep them buoyant, to keep them upbeat, and to see them through this next period of time, however long it happens to be, so that they don't hopefully fall into a position where they are needing to seek more professional help for any form of mental health concerns. So maybe starting off with you, Sally.
I guess the first thing that comes to mind for me is just having that open communication with your child or young person, making sure that you make special time where you really kind of sit down with them and focus in on them sort of one-on-one, or if you've got multiple children, kind of either talking to them independently or together. We recommend either making a hot chocolate together or something and sitting down with no distractions, no TV, no phone, nothing, and really kind of asking them how they're feeling and how they're getting on, so that you don't kind of, they don't bottle their feelings up. I think, so communication, I would say, is a really key thing.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you very much.
And
what would you add to that,
I would say communication with the school as well. So making sure that you keep the lines of communication open with school. If they're secondary school age, making sure that their tutor is aware that you're concerned, making sure that the tutor is passing that information on to anybody else who may be having contact with the child, particularly if they're not in school and they're doing home learning. Really important that everybody around the child understands, but also making sure that you are able to do some really nice things, like Sally said, but things that the child can choose to do and that they can dip in and out of and can do in stages. Baking's a really good example, that just by having that activity going on, you might be able to engage your child and start being able to talk about other things that aren't to do with cakes and cake icing. It takes the pressure away from sitting and saying, so how's your day been today? Tell me why are you so angry? You can be talking about other things, and then children start to open up, don't they?
Brilliant. Yeah. Great advice.
I'd just say, in general, for well-being, it's good to keep a routine and make sure you're eating well and exercising, all that kind of thing. But no, definitely, as Joe was saying, just doing things together, you get so much from people when you just hang out with them. And I think in COVID, it's really hard to see an end goal of when is it gonna, I don't know. So maybe looking into like doing projects together or things that they enjoy, really, don't make them make something that they don't want to, but just having little goals, little things to work towards. I love plants and things like so gardening, hands, really tactile things, getting engaged, getting stuck in, baking, that's a short-term goal, things like that. I think they can kind of help keep people just doing things, moving, talking, and keeping as well as they can.
Great advice.
And I don't know if Sally will agree with me, but it's also really important that children see that adults struggle sometimes, and that if you're modelling being, not making up being anxious, but if you're modelling anxious and then saying, but I'm going to do this to make myself feel better, I'm going to go for a walk, then children start to understand that how they're feeling is okay because mummy's feeling like that or daddy's feeling like that, and that there are ways, they're learning ways to manage their own anxieties.
Well, thank you so much, all of you. It's been absolutely brilliant. Some really, really amazing advice, and I'm sure you put a lot of minds at ease. And Joe, particularly, thank you very much for jumping in at the last minute and helping us out with that. Thank you very much. Joe Dixon, Clara Price, and Sally Siggs, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, thanks. Wonderful. And more great advice. Please keep those questions coming in on Slido. Don't forget, we are still using the hashtag.
Well done, guys.
Of course, that's all there, and we'd love to hear from you. Of course, that's Reach FW20, and also keep the chat going over here, and don't forget to donate. Make sure you don't forget to do that before you go. We're going to have some more of that fabulous music. I've still got Bring Me Sunshine in my ear coming from the previous session. And we're going to be back at 4 o'clock. And at 4 o'clock, we have got a really interesting debate coming up from a panel where we're going to be talking about social media influencers, something I'm sure you all want to know more about. So we'll see you at 4 o'clock.